getting 1% better every day, I think about doing that in every aspect of my life.
Scientific research on it is looking at things from the atomic level.
Learning to maximize each millisecond, getting out on your approach, putting your feet down. Teammate had a rough day today and they were able to come to me. That's being a better teammate, which means I still got 1% better.
Sounds like the 1% better rule is more of a value system for you. I like that. That's fascinating. What other strategies do you use to build self-discipline?
I truly believe in making sacrifices. To have that self-discipline is to show up anyways.
Self-regulation is a battery. Once your self-regulation runs out, that's when you start making mistakes. Welcome to the All Mental Podcast for athletes, where we do a deep dive into the mental strategies so that you can be able to gain a competitive edge in any sport that you play. I'm your host, Charles, and while I am a licensed therapist, it's only for informational and educational purposes only. This is not a substitute for your own individual therapy. If you do need a therapist, please do find one inside your area. Division I track athlete coming out of Boston University, First Team All-Patriot League, and for the Patriot League Championships, first place in the long jump and the triple jump during the indoor, and then first place on the triple jump in the outdoor piece. Welcome to the All Mental Podcast for athletes. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. I'm so glad you want to be able to talk about the 1% rule and marginal gains, because I think that is something that a lot of athletes talk about. But the real scientific research on it is looking at things from the atomic level of how can I improve my performance by what I wear, by my shoes, how much water should I drink, how much sleep should I get, what's the optimal temperature for my room for when I sleep, and then how that connects into our second topic of self-discipline. I feel like you need to be able to have self-discipline, and that's split into 3 different levels because self-discipline is the highest it goes, how that allows you to be able to access the 1% rule. So just to start things off is how would you define the 1% rule, and what strategies do you use?
For me, when I think about getting 1% better every day, I think about doing that in every aspect of my life. Being an athlete is a huge part of my personality. I've been an athlete for going on 9 years this year, and it's been a hot minute of committing to like the identity of sport. But that's not all I do. I am a student first, and outside of that, I'm a person, and it's important to be a good person and a good teammate and get better in every aspect of that. So just being able to hold myself accountable for like, yeah, I had a rough day, and yeah, maybe my mental was a little bit like on the lower end today.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, getting 1% better might not be taking more run throughs on the runway. It might be sitting through those hard mental moments and being comfortable being uncomfortable. Because
Okay.
in those moments is when you grow.
Yeah, I know you major psychology too, so I'm really excited for this conversation. So, 'cause my background is social work, so it's amazing. And okay, so it sounds like the 1% better rule is more of a value system for you. So
Yes.
everything in your life, sports, relationships, family, friends, goes into being 1% better. Oh, okay. I like that. That's fascinating. I like that. I never heard someone had a value system of 1% better before. So with that, I'm going to dive deeper into it. What concrete strategies do you have to make sure that you're getting 1% better on a regular basis?
I like to hold myself accountable in every aspect of everything. This year, I've decided that I'm going to rely a little bit more on like self-reflection and journaling. So every day has been a journal sort of thing, post practice, just going over how I felt through training that day, through the day, what I did, how I was eating, but also having like an emotional check-in and being like, was I a good person today? Was I the person I expect everybody else to be? Because I can't expect people to be great if I'm not willing to be great as well. You can only expect what you're putting out there. So I just go over and make sure I'm being a good person, being someone that people can rely on. Concrete, knowing that I'm making myself available for when people need me, but also being available to criticism and being receptive to having to grow and change. Because if I was perfect, I wouldn't be in college. I would be doing other things. There's there's no level of perfection that could be enough to say that I can't get better today. And reflecting on, yeah, okay, maybe I didn't get better the way I thought I would on the runway, or maybe I didn't run as fast today, or my 250 felt harder than usual. But knowing that teammate had a rough day today and they were able to come to me.
Mm.
That's being a better teammate, which means I still got 1% better instead of just focusing on strictly the athletics because that can be a little bit of a dangerous cycle.
Tell me more about that. What I think journaling is fascinating. I think as we start talking about self-discipline, journaling is a really critical strategy that athletes can do. Some people really like it, some people don't. But if people can start at least trying it, then we start getting to self-discipline and monitoring your progress and the goal achievement side of things. Journaling is amazing, and also just being aware of your day and being aware of your emotions allows you to be able to take a step back and really analyze that. Like, was I a better person today? I wasn't. Okay, like I'm not gonna get too down on it, but what things can I adjust and make changes for so I can make immediate changes tomorrow? Whereas if you don't write those things down, you miss a lot. You don't really think about it. It's hard to be able to remember that a couple of days down the line. When did you start that journaling practice?
I've always been a little bit of a writer my whole life.
Mm,
I like to put my emotions down on paper, but I didn't start journaling until September of last year as like a daily practice. And it was
mm,
because coaches had been like, you always have a lot on your mind, and it'd be a better practice for you to put them somewhere instead of holding it. And I'm
yeah.
not a huge talker, so I got a journal. And it was nice to be able to go to practice and be like, okay, practice sucked. And in
Mm,
this moment, I feel very upset about how I am performing in practice to be able to turn
mm,
around, put it on paper, and then walk away and go do the next rep and leave it because it's
mm,
on paper, it's done, it's over with. I can't change anything about what just happened, but I can change what I'm about to go do in response to what just happened. So that was like a
okay.
practice I started working through in September, and it's been really helpful.
So you do that during in the middle of meets. You write in your journal.
Not so much meets. Meets I tend to be a little like locked in a little differently, and I just need to be
Gotcha.
away. But during practice, between reps, I do like to write and just analyze what went through and what I felt I needed, and it also like
Mm,
allows me to go back and sit with coach and be like, this is what worked this week, and this is what didn't work this week,
mm.
and how do we make changes so that everything is always working for us.
So it sounds like how that strategy of journaling impacts your performance. And again, performance, as you said, is not just on the track, but also with your relationships and with your teammates and with your coaches. How that has able to allow you, or what that has done for your performance in those areas, sounds like allows you to take a step back, really analyze what's going on, and forget about it. Not forget about it, but let that clear your mind. So it sounds like that was able to help you focus more and lock in more in the moment, and then also have more of a direction of what exactly you want to do or exactly you want to be able to change for next time.
Yes.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. And then how much of an impact do you think that has had from doing it from September compared to when you didn't do it before? What do you feel like? Because you mentioned your coaches said that you had a lot on your mind. When everything was on your mind, how did that impact your performance before you started journaling? But then also, let's just start there. How did that impact your performance before you started journaling?
I'm very used to a lot of things happening all at once.
Mm,
With being a student athlete, you have to be adaptable, but it also means that everything is happening all at the same time and you need to be good at it all. Um, so I'm not really used to a completely calm state of being and a silence in the mind because there's no real time for that. Going from lift to practice to class to like AT to recover and then back to the track to make sure I'm doing the little things and putting in core and then I gotta eat and sleep and
mm,
it's just go, go, go. And I love the convenience of being here in Boston because the track is a 10-minute walk. So
nice.
it's like we can always be there. But when you are that busy and you are constantly just going, there is like a mental allostasis, like a load that is like added and it keeps getting added and added and added. And then you add
Mm,
the academic pressure of, oh, I want to be a 4.0 GPA student, or
right.
hey, this is what I need to do. This class is going a little bit harder, so now I need a tutor. And you're adding all this stuff, but you're not really addressing the fact that you already had a high stress threshold. Now you're adding to that stress threshold, and your body is just going. and going and going. And I didn't really notice it because it's always been what I've done. But at some point, everything started to feel a little bit harder to do. And like getting up started to be a little harder, and you were more exhausted earlier in the day. And it was just a
Mm,
lot of luck because there's nowhere to put all of the excess stress. So
right.
like when I started journaling, especially in the moment of practice, I'm a fixated person. I want everything to be perfect at all times, and it's just not possible in the sport. Like it's not. If
Right.
everything was perfect, we'd be jumping 16 meters, and we're not. Like we're figuring it out. And as a human species, we still have so much growth to do in this sport. But wanting to be perfect is great for motivation, but it can
Hmm.
also be a deterrent. It can stop you from wanting to try
Right.
because you don't want
Yeah.
to fail. So to
Hmm.
be able to write down the imperfection and what I can do to get closer to perfect is progress. And through writing, I found like it's just been a lot easier to go back and look at what progressed me today so I can build off that progress going into tomorrow instead of having to go back and guess. Feel like last week was a really good week, but I don't remember what I did
Right.
last week to make it a good week.
Yeah, because everything's so busy. I think, and like I said, you have a lot of accolades. You also have a lot of academic accolades as well. So I think you have like two or three academic accolades. I don't remember the acronyms on the ones you're under, but I think as a student athlete, it's really important because you have more than just your sport. You have your sport, you have academics, and all those have to be at a high level as well and can take a lot of pressure. So many things you mentioned touch on a couple of different aspects of research, which I think is really important. One being again, I like that you're a psychology student too. So the amygdala, right? For people that don't know, the amygdala in your brain processes emotions. And a fascinating study they found is that when you are actually more aware of your emotions, what happens to the activity in your amygdala is it slows down, which means you're able to better process those emotions. So as you go back to journaling, when you're just writing things down, that allows your amygdala to be able to slow down and process. You can kind of look at things from a third person point of view of this happened, that happened, this happened. Oh, PC have way too much on their plate. You can cut this out, you can cut that out, you can shift this around here. Or PC are way too tired and you can't function. Knowing if you get even one less hour of sleep, that impacts your function, even just one less hour of sleep. And then another thing too you mentioned as well is if someone has the mentality that they have to be perfect can sometimes make you stagnant and sometimes make you procrastinate. Because what's interesting about that aspect of research, and I know we only have like so much time, but the procrastination research is fascinating because one of the main aspects for procrastination is lack of self-efficacy, where someone doesn't believe that they have the skill to be able to do something. So when you feel like you have to be perfect, it means you never actually have the skill to be able to do that thing. So therefore, it becomes daunting and actually makes a lot of humans be able to procrastinate. If you just understood and had the mind frame, it's like, I can never be perfect. I always strive to be perfect, yes. And I always try to put myself in the best position to be perfect, yes. But the reality is no one's ever going to be perfect. So that's cool and that's all right. And I'm gonna fail, and that's no big deal. But if I fail, that means there's ways for me to be able to improve and from ways for me to be able to get 1% better. Did I hit the nail on the head a bit? Are we still in alignment with all right, I want to make sure I got
Yes,
your
yes.
thought process down. Cool, that's amazing. All right, I like that. I like that. What do you think about the research aspect of things? Because the 1% better rule comes this research wasn't started by him, but Dave Brailsford he was a performance coach for the British cycling team. Have you heard of him?
I have not.
He's the one who kind of popularized the 1% rule. Oh, I have the stats. All right. So once he started, oh, I ripped it. I ripped this to take a note of something. All right, I have it in my head. So he's won, I think, 14 Tour de France's, 59 World Championships, and I think he had like 10 gold medals in the Olympics, his team did. And his biggest thing was the 1% better rule. So what they did is they broke everything down to the minute level. They looked at all their bikes. What tires should the bike have? Can we take this off the bike? For their performance shorts, what shorts are give them the most aerodynamics? He's kind of one who was like, all right, we're going to shave off everyone's hair on every part of their body to be able to increase aerodynamics. So they started looking at every tiny little detail in training to figure out how can we get 1% better? Because before he came through, the British cycling team was not good by any means. So by that definition of 1% better, how do you feel like that fits into everything that you do with journaling and constantly being able to get better in your values of 1%?
I see it as like getting 1% better is taking every opportunity
Mm,
and using it to the best of your abilities. So I have a certain amount of hours I can be at the track a week. NCAA says no more. So
mm,
going in knowing that I can come in a little earlier and stretch and warm up and make sure that I'm taking care of my body. It can be really hard to like fuel and get sleep, especially when like you've got a 15-page paper due and
mm,
all you want to do is write it, but also all you want to do is be at the track and you can't be at both places at the same time. So, being 1% better is learning to manage things that seem unmanageable, but
mm,
also recognizing that you can only control so much. And I've done a lot of learning on letting myself control the controllables and let the uncontrollables do as they do, but to make the controllables work for me. And that's how
mm.
I've been focusing on getting 1% better because it's really easy to want to control the entire world. You
Yeah.
want to stop what people may think about you. You want to make sure you are giving off exactly the type of person that you believe you are. But everyone's perception of you is going to be different.
Mm,
Everything you do will be perceived differently. You cannot control that. You cannot control how hard somebody else is training or whether they're having a good day on the runway. If they're going to jump far or not, all you can control is getting out on your approach, putting your feet down. You can try and control that board consistency. You can be aggressive through your takeoff. You can be more patient through your landing. Just a little tiny, because you're in the air for like 3 seconds max. So the
mm,
milliseconds of time that you are in the air, learning to maximize each millisecond has been, I guess, like the more technical aspect of that 1% better rule, where it's like,
yeah.
okay, like now I have to figure out what can I take off. Well, I can't take anything off. It's just my body.
Mm,
I have to learn how to use my body
yeah.
differently. If it means I need to spend more time under tension in certain places, or I need to relax more, or
Mm,
I need to change the way my arms are moving to better benefit my approach, like those are little tiny changes that you have to make to go from being a good athlete to a great athlete, and from a great athlete to an extraordinary one.
I like that. So your 1% better rule is mental. Controlling the milliseconds. If I had to give your 1% better rule a title, I think that's what I would give it. Is controlling the milliseconds. You know, okay. Let's dive just a little bit. I still want to get to self-discipline. I think that's fascinating. But one last question I have for you about 1% better is what strategies do you utilize to be able to control the milliseconds to be able to get 1% better?
The biggest thing is like trusting the people who have your best interest at heart.
Mm,
It's like it's trusting coach, even if like you're making correction that feels silly. It feels insane. It's like, okay, what is like putting my foot down a little harder in step four gonna do for my takeoff in step 18? It
mm,
feels a little crazy, but like trusting the people who have absolutely your best interest at heart, knowing that you have surrounded yourself with people who are going to push you
mm,
to be not just the best athlete you can be, but the best person you can be. Because
right.
being a well rounded person makes you a well rounded athlete. It makes you versatile and it makes you easier to just take coaching. Like it's a coachability thing. So, like,
Mm,
trusting your coaches, but also being willing to advocate for yourself when you feel like something's not working.
mm,
Asking the questions of why am I doing
yeah.
something? You may feel silly for asking it, but just ask it. Why am I switching my run? Why do I need to like add a step or take away a step? Why should my hips come through here? Why are we doing
Mm,
this drill? Why am I running this far? Why? Because if you can understand logistically why you are
right.
doing what you're doing, you can add intention behind every action and adding intention behind insanely great coaching and coachability creates a weapon.
That's interesting because I was going to ask you. I was like, because you're all about control, but then you give up control to your coaches. But then it sounds like you still have control because you ask the questions of why to be able to understand. So I'm going to give up some of my control to you because I know if I can't do all this, being an athlete, being a friend, being a daughter, being academics, and then still take all the different scientific knowledge about how I should be training. So I have to give up some control, but I'm going to make sure I understand what's happening and why it's happening. So then I'm bought into that as well. So then, because if you understand, yeah, you need to be able to utilize this really tiny little stretch because that's going to be able to help you put your foot down harder on step 4. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, because that uses this ligament and this. Okay, so I need that. That makes sense. All right, I got you now. All right, cool. I like that. I like your 1% better mentality and how you
Thank
utilize control.
you.
That's dope. I think any athlete listening can be like, oh, how can I get 1% better? Because you have you had the physical stuff as far as what you can wear, how you sleep, whatever. But then you also have the mental side of 1% better and how you allow that to be able to function. And when you make it a value system, just a quick segue to motivation, you talk about having to understand why you need to do things or why you're doing certain training programs is when your value system, you have to make what you're doing align with your value system. So if coach is like, you need to be able to do this tiny little stretch, you're like, why? Because that's going to help you get 1% better. Show me, tell me how. Because X, Y, and Z. If they haven't done the research to tell you how, you're like, then why are you making me do that then? Oh, that's how I do it. So okay, even though this is annoying as crap, that's gonna make me get 1% better. All right, bet. I have the motivation to be able to do it now. Cool. All right, let's dive into self-discipline because it takes self-discipline, like you mentioned, you've been doing it for 9 years, almost a decade. It takes a lot of self-discipline to do the tiny and small things that's going to help you win by literally inches that we talked about before. So how do you define self-discipline and what strategies do you implement to have self-discipline? Because there's about 3 or 4 critical ones. I'm curious to which ones you use.
I would say how I define self-discipline is the ability to do things even when they're hard and when you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to do them. It is so easy to show up to practice when you feel good and you're like you jumped far that week and you're feeling strong in the weight room, but you were eating and school wasn't hard and everything was just, I don't want to say handed to you because it never is, but it felt easy. But then you get into exam week and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard and you're not sleeping as well. So you're not recovering as well. Maybe you're not eating as well. And man, my mental is just not doing hot. And honestly, I just don't want to get out of my bed. Self discipline for me is the ability to get up and do it anyways. To know
Mm-hmm.
that even though this is hard, something harder is waiting on the other side if I choose not to do it. It'll be difficult. It's going to be hard. Everything in life is hard. If it was easy, we wouldn't call life a challenge. We
Right.
wouldn't be presented with the things in life that we are, and there wouldn't be such great athletes and people in the world because if everything was easy, we'd all be on the exact same level. We're not.
Mm-hmm.
Like the world is different. We've all had different things handed to us. The cards that we're dealt, we're all different. We have to learn to make it work. And there are days where you are going to be handed awful cards where it physically hurts sometimes to get out of bed. Or you're going to practice and it's like the hardest practice of the week. And you know it's the hardest practice of the week because it's always on the same day. And you're just like, I just don't want to be here. I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And I would rather not. And yeah, it's difficult, but to have that self discipline is to show up anyways. Show up with the
Mm-hmm.
intention anyways. Be confident anyways. Know that you are capable anyways. It's easy to say that you're here in a situation because you were lucky, but self discipline is knowing that you are deserving because you've done everything you are physically capable of doing to put you in the situation you would like to be in.
Yeah, that's spot on with the research. I mean, self-discipline is doing something regardless of your emotions. So that's bingo. And I think what's one other question I have for you is what strategies do you utilize to be self-disciplined? I know you use a lot of one. You use a lot of cognitive reframing. And for those that don't know what cognitive reframing is, it's literally just taking your thought process and reframing as whatever you want. The mind is a really powerful mind. So if you have practice on that whatever day that is terrible, if you are thinking about how dreadful it's going to be and how much it's going to suck and how you could be doing something else, whatever, you take a moment to pause. And this is again why being aware of your emotions and decreasing the activity in your amygdala is really important, because you can take a moment to pause, like, whoa, I'm thinking about how negative this is going to be. Do I need this practice to be able to get 1% better? Yes or no? Do I need this practice to be able to win? Yes or no? I do. All right, bet that's all I need to know. And everything else can be able to go down the window. Whether you write it in your journal, what your emotions are, just to be able to get that out there. It's like, I feel crappy today. I feel like this. I feel this. To acknowledge that, because that's important. You can't just shove stuff down. But okay, that's what it is. I bet I'm gonna embrace that, because on that day when I track me, I might be feeling the same exact way. It might be really crummy outside. It might be really crummy just getting to the track and whatever's going on. It might be during finals week. So I need to be able to train for this now. So on track day, I'm already prepared for it. That's how I'm going to reframe my mindset. So I think you mentioned a couple different times cognitive reframing aspect of it is really good. What other strategies do you use to build self discipline?
Truly believe in making sacrifices. You cannot be good at everything all at once. And if you could, maybe you can, and I just missed something. But like, if you can, somebody let me know. But you can't be good at everything all at once. You know, a jack of all trades is a master of none.
Yeah.
So, being able to be like, okay, like I want to be really good on the track, or I want to be really good in the classroom. That may mean I don't really have time to go outside.
Hmm.
You know, my friends are going out tonight, but I have practice and a paper due. But my friends are
Hmm.
going out, and I want to spend time with my friends. And then making the sacrifice that, okay, maybe I don't go out today.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't go and have this night of fun, but instead I sit here and I work and I
Hmm.
stretch and I get ahead of this so that I can be ahead next week. And
Hmm.
maybe I can do something next week this time to be able to refresh myself. Because either way, like you can't live a militant lifestyle. Being militant
Right.
won't do anything for you. If you're not having joy through your sport, you're not having the passion or the love, there is really no purpose in doing it. It'll make you miserable. Doesn't matter how you reframe it, like it'll physically make you miserable and make you sick. Like
Hmm.
your brain is that powerful. If you are not enjoying it and you are just doing it for the sake of doing it, you have got to find something you enjoy, a reason to be there. If that means, I mean, track is a big sport. That means switch an event, switch your events.
Yeah.
But if it means leaving the sport together, sometimes you have to make a decision. And I do everything in my power so that I'm never in that position. So if it means I'm making a sacrifice this week and I'm not going outside, or perhaps I'm not having whatever meal I've been dreaming about this week because, there's a
Yeah.
meet and I just don't have the time
Right.
and I'd rather just eat a little cleaner, sacrificing those things in that moment so that you can be better, but also so that you can continue to allow yourself to not only be great, but to be transformative in the way that you work. And I
Mm.
find that to be really important. It's like, yeah, you can cognitively reframe all you want, but if you're not willing to sacrifice and make the physical changes to make you good, to make you great, to win a national championship or to win a Patriot League title, to make regionals, to jump top 10 marks or run fast or, you know, do whatever it is that you need to do or you're aiming to do. If you're not able to make the sacrifices to do it, then it's never going to come. It's not handed to
Hmm.
you. Life is not handed to you. And if it is, dang, can we switch? But it's not, it's,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's never handed to you.
Right.
Nothing's handed to you. You have to work for it. If you're willing
Hmm.
to work for it and sacrifice everything that may seem pleasurable in the moment because you have the mental foresight to see how this may be a downfall later in your career,
Right.
it'll always come back and benefit you.
Yeah, I think a key thing talking about, like I mentioned, there's levels to the self discipline. The two below self discipline is going to be, you have self control, self regulation, self discipline. Self control is the one to where you're on your phone and you have to control your emotions while you're already doing something that's distracting to then get off your phone. Self regulation is you see your phone, And you're like, oh, I want to be on my phone right now. But then you regulate your emotions to not go on your phone. And self discipline is doesn't matter what my emotions are. Phone is going not going to help me. I'm not going to go on it. So one of the key strategies anyone can be able to utilize, you mentioned this about knowing what your vision is and making the sacrifices to be able to get there. Actually, let me back up. No, having doing the sacrifice to be able to get to wherever you want to go, but that takes knowing what your vision is. So someone has never written down what plan they need to do to be able to get to where they want. It's going to be very difficult to have self discipline because you have no clue what you're supposed to be doing. Whether you started out, if you don't have a bunch of coaches around you, start out right up by yourself communicating with your coaches because they have a lot of experience to figure out, okay, this is what my plan is to get to where I want to be. This is where I want to be. Coach can help you be able to augment that plan, change this up or change that up. Then you understand, okay, in order to get where I want to go, I have to do this, and this, which means, oh, I can't go out this night. I can't go out that night. I can't go this night. Or I have a plan for, and then also if then plans is another fascinating one too. So if this happens, then this happens. So if my friends want me to go out, then I can't go with them this night. It's all good. But I know on this week, I can be able to go out with my friends. So I might plan something then for them. Another thing you mentioned too is self regulation. I know we're running low on time. But another thing you mentioned as well is self regulation. And regulation is really fascinating because you mentioned this being able to take some time to be able to enjoy yourself and not wear yourself down, which is also backed by science. So if anyone's listening, like, you know what, peace, like, whatever, like, I got to keep on grinding and grinding and grinding to the bone. It doesn't actually work out very well. It actually hinders your performance more so than it helps your performance. And long story short, self regulation is a battery. Everyone has a battery. You can't make your battery go bigger. You can only let your battery drain slower. And that's by doing things that cause you to self regulate, allows you to be able to build your self regulation in that sense. But the bottom line is once your self regulation runs out, that's when you start making mistakes. Self regulation says, hey, peace, on this fourth step, I need to put my foot down. And you feel like, no, I don't really need to do it. I just need to go fast. That's when you're self like, no, no, peace, put your foot down. And then you listen to yourself. When your self reg is low, then you don't do that. You're like, I don't need to do that. I just do what I need to do anyway. And then you end up performing worse. And for other athletes as well, I talked about this for football athletes. You have to maintain your assignment. And from basketball, for baseball, you have a certain assignment, especially on team sports. If your self reg gets low, you get out of your assignment, then the other team makes a play on you. When your self regulation is depleted, that's because you're doing too many things to self regulate. You're overtraining mentally and physically, so your battery never gets the chance to be able to regenerate. You're losing sleep, you're not eating properly, so your battery is constantly low. The only way to be able to regain and recharge your battery is to do things that do not require self regulation. Hanging out with friends, just chilling, just kicking it, getting some extra sleep in there, just chilling, just kicking it. Those are things going to allow your body to be able to rejuvenate that battery. So when everyone's plan, as much as you plan for what you need to be able to do to be successful, the training that you need, you should have a plan for how you're going to self-regulate and recharge your self-regulation. On Friday nights, I'm going to play video games for an hour with the homies. On Saturday nights, I'm going to go out and hang out with my friends. I'm going to get coffee with this friend, coffee with that friend, because I know I need to be able to recharge my battery. And that's going to help me be when meet time happens or when game time happens, my battery's going to be full so I can regulate and dominate when I need to. Damn, that's a good line. Regulate and dominate. I like that one. Cool. All right. I think we're out of time, Peace. I think we are out of time. So I want to respect your time. Do you have any questions for me before we kind of wrap up?
I do not.
Oh, I learned a lot, and this was really dope. I really, again, like your 1% better mentality, and I like how you do it on a mental side of things. That's fascinating. So cool. Thank you for taking the time, and I really appreciate it once again. And cool.
Thank you.